seeing those transitions with the kids and seeing them grow as a person and hearing them talk later about how their experience here changed their trajectory. I think it's just so important because it just opens them up in a way that no other type of experience does.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Missions That Made Them. I am your host, Jason Verdelli. This isn't just a podcast, but rather it's a movement. It's a movement designed to make the world a better place by bringing more awareness to the great work of the people and organizations making a difference, and more importantly, how you can help. We live in a world today surrounded by a narrative in the media that focuses in on negativity and draws attention to the problems, but not the solutions. Our guests represent the solutions, not the problems. And with that, I am super excited to announce our guest today, Crystal Alice, who's the founder and executive director of Borderless Friends Forever. And she's got an amazing story. I was on the website, had a chance to check out the organization, and it's just what you've done here is absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to hear your story and the goal today is really to inspire you so you can inspire other people. Yep. And also to bring light the fact that there's a lot of solutions out there in the world today. There's obviously a lot of problems that we're exposed to, but more importantly, there are solutions. There's the solutions under the iceberg, the things sometimes you don't see. And that's really what we're trying to do with the podcast here, is to bring light to those things. So without further ado, Crystal, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jason, for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk about Borderless Friends.
Absolutely. So dive right in. Tell us a bit about what Borderless Friends Forever is all about.
So Borderless Friends Forever, we refer to ourselves as BFF. So I'll just refer to that in the future. But we
thanks. I love the acronym.
Yeah. And so we live in a world of acronyms, right, in our industry. And so when I was looking for a name, I thought, well, nobody will ever forget BFF, right? So
right. It was perfect.
Our mission really is quite simple. It's to promote world peace through cultivating educational and cultural exchanges between people. We work with high school aged students, so students between the ages of 14 and 18 who come to the United States from another country to live with a host family and attend high school for a semester or a year. So it's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. So, with every founder, I always like to ask the question, what made you start it?
I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, how did you get involved in this? And I say, well, really, it was by accident. I was looking for something online that was completely different. I was looking to help folks who were adopting babies. Because in other states, I live in North Carolina, but in other states, when you adopt a baby, they have you stay in the state for 10 days. And there are people that host the adopting babies and families, or the adopted babies and their adopting families. So I was looking to kind of give back to my community. And when I was looking for that, I realized North Carolina does not do adoption that way. But in my Google search, I came across host and exchange student. And my kids were young, and they were 5 and 10 at the time. And I thought, well, that sounds like something that's kind of cool. Maybe we'll do that in the future when our kids are older. But I got some information, and I ended up deciding to host an exchange student that year. And we hosted a girl from Germany. Her name's Caroline. We had a great experience with her. We just enjoyed the cultural exchange, being able to teach her about our American culture and life, and being able to learn more about Germany and her life there. So I was really sad when she left to go home. And I thought the only way to not be sad anymore is to host again. And therein lies the history of BFF. I was hosting through another organization. I was working part-time, just helping to coordinate some students' stays with them. And over the past 16 years, my family has hosted 31 exchange students in our own home. We're actually hosting number 31 right now, a girl from Moldova named Andy. And so we just my whole family kind of fell in love with the process of hosting. And out of our love for hosting, BFF was born. So I've worked with exchange students for 16 years, but several years ago, I decided, you know what, I think we could do this on our own and make kind of a boutique organization where we can really focus and hone in on supporting our students and host families as best as possible.
Yeah. So, That's, I mean, I would imagine. What's the story like to build an organization
Oh.
like this? I mean, we think about exchange students, but we don't always think about the organizations that are behind the scenes. Like, how hard is it to set up an organization, especially,
Whew.
I don't know, dealing with overseas stuff, which I'm kind of clueless
Yeah,
with.
sure. That's a
You know,
great question. It was a lot of work. But through my passion for hosting exchange students, the work was a long process, but it was one worth doing. So, first of all, of course, we have to become a nonprofit. That was the first step. So we had to apply, just like all of your other guests, to apply to become a nonprofit and create that process. And then we have to apply to the U.S. Department of State. So once we got the nonprofit status, which took, several months, then we had to apply to the U.S. Department of State to be what's called a sponsoring organization, or J1 sponsor. So our students come on what's called a J1 visa, which is a student visa, 1 year or one semester only, and then they go home. So it was quite a process. We had to create all the documents necessary to run the entire organization just to apply, and didn't even know if we would be accepted after having done all that. But luckily we were, and we started with a small number of students and have just been building and building throughout the past several years. And, that's kind of the steps.
how many host families do you have now?
Right now we have about 110 families hosting.
Wow.
We have,
Yeah.
I think we have 110 kids on program right now. We started with 25. So,
Wow. That's how do you recruit? I'm just curious, like what makes somebody want to? I mean, obviously, you had shared, your reasoning there, but do you find a pattern in what gets somebody to say, "Hey, I want to host an exchange student"?
not really.
No.
We have
Yeah.
such a variety of host families that it's often different for each individual family and or person who hosts. So sometimes we have families who have one child, for example, and they think that would be a great way to give their kid a sibling, so to speak, for a year, without having the commitment of having another child for life. So that happens sometimes.
Right.
We have,
Yeah. Like
yeah,
sort of renting one, I
yeah,
guess. Right.
exactly. Borrowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have,
Or yes,
yeah,
yes, borrowing would be better. Yeah, better
yeah.
word.
And we have families who don't have any children at home. Either their children are grown and gone and they miss being parents and having that interaction with kids. We have families who host because they just really want to give back some of what they've been given in life, and they want to share that, and they want to share their culture. And we have people who say, oh, I can't travel all the time, so let me host exchange students so I can learn more about various different countries and cultures. So there's really a plethora of reasons that people step up and want to host an exchange student.
Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, the fact that there's just a variety of that. I mean, I would imagine recruiting for that. I mean, do these people, the families that are hosting, are they Googling? Are they reaching out to you typically for that? Or is it, do you find yourself doing a little bit more awareness, kind of just a general awareness around the organization, a little bit of the push, kind of pushing the message
Yeah,
out? Or
sure.
do you find it's more people find you with that?
We have both. So we do have some people who reach out to us, they want to host. We have people who reach out and say, my friend in Germany wants to send their daughter this year to live with us for a school year. So we work with them to help those kids come over. We also have international partners that recruit students for us, and they screen the
Mm,
students. So we work very closely with about 20 different partners around the globe to help screen
yeah.
and recruit the students. And then we have a host of people who volunteer and work with us to help us recruit families. So sometimes families come in through, social media, other forms of media, where they learn about us and they reach out to us to host. And then other times we are doing marketing and, just getting the word out and, having conversations with people. If my kids were here today, they'd probably tell you my mom just like walks up to people in Target and starts talking about exchange students. So they're like, I can
Yeah.
work it into any
I'm sure.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what do you find them as the most when you host an exchange student? I would imagine, obviously, there's a lot of gratification that comes with that and
Sure.
everything else. And I've had some friends of mine, I've had family, some people I know that have gone through that experience. What would you say is the most rewarding, at least from your perspective? I know
Yeah.
the more what might be rewarding for other people might be vary a little bit, but from your perspective, what would you say is I don't want to say the greatest value, but the most gratifying, of that experience?
Yeah, sure. I really think it's the growth that you see in the kid themselves. So,
Yeah, yeah, so,
we have had students who have been very quiet and very much, introverted and inside, and then they just blossom into somebody who learns how to use their voice for good, who learns how to, you know, talk about what they want and need from life. And so seeing those transitions with the kids and seeing them grow as a person and hearing them talk later about how their experience here changed their trajectory. I think it's just so important because it just opens them up in a way that no other type of experience does.
yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, do you, I mean, obviously it's the experience. Do you think it's more of the experience with the family? The is it more of the intimate experience, the close family aspect of it, or is it like what percentage would you say is not percentage, but portion or so is the direct family interaction, then also just being exposed to the culture, being if you're coming to the
Yeah,
United States, obviously depending which country you come from, this can be a little bit of a culture shock.
absolutely. Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it's definitely a combination of things that help the kid to kind of blossom in that way and learn and grow in that way. I definitely think that the host family relationship is paramount because I always tell people like if you, I think we're breaking down stereotypes, right, and we're breaking down barriers between people, between countries. Where we live in such a divisive kind of place right now, a time, if you will. And so,
Hmm.
one of the things that I find is that the kids learn to value others, and so do our host families, and to value not only the similarities, but also to value and celebrate the differences that we all have. And
Yeah.
so, I think that it's probably paramount the host family relationship that changes them. Just because they learn that, I tell people all the time that, you cannot hate. It's very hard to hate some place or some religion or some, country, what have you, if you love just one person from that place, and
It's
so
true.
I think that's probably paramount. And then, of course, they make friends here and they have friends from other countries as well. So we get our students together every other month or every month, depending on the community advisor that's working with those kids. And so they get to not only know Americans, but they also get to know kids from 10, 15, 30 other countries. So they develop these strong bonds and relationships with their peers as well, and they learn from
Yeah.
each other in that way.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, they're going through the same
Mhm.
experience. They're able to interact, saying, "Hey, were you new to the United States? Were you new to this whole experience?" So they don't feel alone in that process, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. I mean, that's pretty cool. You kind of community that you've built essentially
Yes, exactly.
that shares the same perspective.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, that's really awesome. With that, I mean, with that, one question I have to ask is, what do you find? What do you find the most challenging in? I think when it comes to exchange students, or maybe what do you find? Maybe some of their biggest challenges are when they come over here.
Definitely culture shock. And one of the things that puts
Yeah.
them into most culture shock, in my opinion, in my experience, is the transportation. So a lot of our students
Oh,
are coming
yeah.
from places where transportation is so it's readily available to them, you know. So it's no
Right.
big deal. They can hop on a train, they can hop on a bus. They're so used to public transportation. And then they come somewhere like, even Cary, North Carolina, where we are, yes, could I get a bus and go to the mall in, let's say, Raleigh? Sure, it's going to take me 2 hours. So it's just that transportation piece. They're not used to asking their families to drive them and take them places if they need to go
Yeah.
somewhere. They're used to just hopping on a train or a tram or a bus or whatever, or walking because it's close by. So just the fact that we're
Yeah.
so much more spread out and don't have that public transportation is a big shock to a lot of them in the beginning. And then the difference in education systems. A lot of our
Mhm.
kids find the schools here easier than what they are at home. Our kids here have four, depending on what kind of school they go to, what kind of scheduling. They have either four up to maybe eight classes, during a school year or during a school semester. And
Yeah.
in other countries, like my student that I'm hosting right now from Moldova, she has 16 classes she takes on a weekly basis. So
Ooh.
it's a
Wow.
lot, and it's just a very different type of education system. And I think that's a big shock for them as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
What's
will say one of the things they love though is our extracurricular activities. So they love
yeah.
getting involved in that because schools in other countries don't really offer those types of activities. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting to them. They'll join the yearbook, they'll become a cheerleader, a basketball player, they'll wrestle. So things like that, they really enjoy all the different types of clubs and activities that they can be involved in at the American high schools.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, especially going growing up in a U.S. high school. It's there's a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities, and there's so much more now
Hmm.
even than even when I went through high school, college, and everything here in Pennsylvania. It's there's a lot of things to do, even if you
Oh,
want to
yeah.
play. I played a collegiate sport. I played baseball, but there was if you didn't want to play in the NCAA, you could be. They had intramural
Sure.
baseball. They had league club sports, which sometimes would actually be a little bit more
Yeah.
fun. I think actually,
Less
as
stress,
opposed to
less
not
pressure.
having to less stress. Well, obviously, competition level is a little
Yeah.
different, of course. Playing at that level, but but you have a lot of fun. I mean, you take the stress out of the kind of competitive side. I would imagine that it's just fun, right? It's something fun, and
Yeah.
if they're not getting that in those other in their home areas,
Right,
right?
yeah. They do some extracurriculars, but
Yeah,
they're always outside of school. So they're always shocked when they can do those things, related to the school itself. And that school spirit
in school.
and pep rallies, they love that stuff. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So, Crystal,
Yeah.
obviously, the organization itself, you've done a great job building. It's growing, right? I guess. Do you have a vision? Do you have a certain vision in terms of size that you're looking for, in terms of maybe number of host families that you're looking to obtain by a certain date? Is there any the goal like
Yeah,
that?
actually, there is. So right now we placed about 100, a little more than 100 students, like I said, this year.
Yeah.
We started out with 25 from 10 different countries, and we placed them all in North Carolina right around us. And over the past several years, we've grown
Yeah.
to 110 students from 30 different countries placed in 18 different states across the US. And so our goal by 2026 is to be placing 300 students. So to double what we have coming this coming school year in 2022-23, we have 150 students coming on program, and we would like to double that by
Yeah.
26.
That's that's awesome. And you said you place them around the country, right?
We
You
do.
can it's so how does that work? How does I guess you are attracting, people, I guess, all over the country that are reaching out to your organization,
Yes.
right? So obviously it would just depend on where they're from. You're not necessarily targeting a location and then trying to sort of attract a host family in those locations, right?
Correct.
It's sort of, wherever they're at, wherever they're inquiring
Yeah.
from. What you'll try to do then is just match that with a student, right?
Exactly, yes. So not only a student, but also one of our community advisors. So we have a structure in
Yeah.
place where we have community advisors who work with us in the field, and they are the people who help us to recruit the host families, but not just recruit them, but also take them through our screening process. We have a rigorous screening process in place for our host families and our students. And then to help match a student with that family. And then once the student is here, to support that host family and student while they're on program. So they follow up with them every month. They meet with them in person every month to make sure that the students are healthy, their well-being is cared for, et cetera. So it takes a village. That's what they say, right? And we definitely have our
Yeah.
village.
Yep.
So
Yep. That's so cool. I mean, it's and you build such a. I mean, it's just amazing though. You know, I love talking to founders though because it's what you don't hear sometimes is all those times where you struggled
oh
or
yeah.
had. I mean, I would imagine there's. So, what's your biggest? Tell me a war story. What's some of your biggest struggles here with this? I mean, to get this off the ground. I mean,
Goodness.
it's not easy, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
So, I had worked with exchange students, right, for several years prior to starting BFF, and I thought that, I think anytime you've worked in an industry for a long time, you might think, "Oh, I can do this. This is it's easy. I know all the things." Well, you don't know all the things. You think you know all the things. So that first year, getting started and getting going with just 25 students, I thought, "Oh, that's just going to be so easy. It's just 25 kids, no problem." And we did place all of our students in great host families, but it took a lot of time and energy. And we had a very small team, a couple of community advisors, me and one other employee doing all of the work. And it took a lot of late nights and, a lot of calls on the phone, a lot of talking to different people to work out all of those logistics. Of course, as all organizations across the world right now, the pandemic really hit us pretty hard. We did not have any students who came in 2020, 21. We opted not to bring students during that time, simply because we always want to be able to give our students a robust, full experience, and we didn't feel like we could do that year. So we opted just to take a year off. We used that year to create some processes and to make sure that when we did get back to having students on program, that things were running super smoothly. So, it was a year of growth, and it was sad to not have kids on program because, my life is so surrounded by exchange students from all over. And it was kind of a blah year. A lot of people had a blah year or a blah couple of years. So, but we're back to having
Mhm.
students now, and we have students coming next year, and we're super excited and pretty stoked.
Yeah, and I would imagine too the pandemic probably made it like a lot of people I talked to, it made it put into perspective
Sure.
as to what you really appreciated. And when you don't have those experiences, or maybe you've hosted an exchange student for a number of years, but then you didn't have that
Right.
experience, you realize, man, you can realize the void that was missing there, and you gained a lot of appreciation for the small things. I gained an appreciation for playing basketball, which I'm terrible at. I'm awful at it. But we have this little basketball hoop in my backyard, or our backyard, and it's old. It's whatever. But during that period of time, you gain an appreciation for just going outside and being able to shoot some
Yeah,
hoops and that type of thing. So even those things that just the little things, the little there's a little experiences, but even experiences like this, uh, like that too, I would imagine just put it in perspective for a lot of people.
absolutely. Yes. We were
Yeah.
actually supposed to host the girl that we're hosting currently. We were supposed to host her a year ago, but she was
Uh,
unable to come on program because of the pandemic. And so but we are hosting her now, which is exciting. And she and I both were very nervous to get too attached, to talk too much before she came. We were like, is this really going to happen this year? But luckily she was able to come this year and is having a great year. She's super involved in the theater program at her school, super artistic. Oh my goodness. She's like amazing, an amazing artist and just a great kid and an ally for marginalized groups and I think that part of her has even grown and become even stronger living in our household and being here. So yeah, it's always there are challenges and great stories I could
yeah.
tell.
That's what if you had a magic wand? I always like that. This is a kind of a question I like to keep in my back pocket. But if you had a magic wand, it could change anything right now with the exchange students, but also just even in the state of their experience,
Yeah,
right? I mean, they're coming overseas in a time right now where there's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of challenges that America is going
sure.
through in terms of there's a lot of divides, so to
Yeah,
speak, potential, that seem to be there, or at least that are exposed, and we're made to believe that there is there, which I don't necessarily 100% believe 100% believe in.
hmm,
I think there's a degree, but I don't believe it's the majority of it.
right,
I think the majority of people out there are good people and trying to do the right thing and trying to make a better society. I think it's just the problem is that media ends up highlighting the people that aren't, and
right.
that's what we watch,
Yeah,
right? So we get exposed to. So you have to be careful that you become what you were exposed to. But if you did have a magic wand and could change something right now with their experience and they're coming to the United States, what would that be? What would that be into maybe something that they're exposed to,
hmm.
or
That is a great question.
what would utopia look like?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great question. I think, each year we have some students who start out with one host family and for a variety of reasons end up with another host family. We've had a couple this year that the host families lost a job and they no longer felt like financially they could support an extra person, which is totally understandable, of course. We've had a couple of host families who had to move away because of a job. We've had, a couple of host families and students that just weren't a good fit. We are matching them the best we can, but it is, paper to paper, or we do talk to each of them, but it's not always perfect. It's
Mhm.
not a perfect science. It's more of an art, it's people. So, I guess if I had a magic wand, one of the things that I would love to change is just, and we try to do this with our work, is to instill compassion in both the host family and the students when they're here on program. So sometimes I think people, host families in particular, I've noticed, sometimes will let small things sit and build up instead of just be direct with the kid and tell them, all my kids would tell you, I say constantly, well, in the United States, we do that this way, because that's part of their learning
Mhm.
process, right? Is to learn about
Right.
how we do things here versus how they do things back home. And it's not that it's better or worse, it's just different. So,
Hmm.
so just if I had a magic wand, I'd probably use it to just build compassion in people in general, but specifically with our students and our host families for each other. And just know that it's a learning experience. Nobody's perfect. Our host families are not perfect. Our students are not perfect. They're all human beings with flaws and baggage and things that bother them or don't bother them, etc. So that's what I would do, I think.
I think that's too. It's we. I think, and it's a good lesson. I think what you've done with your organization and your viewpoint, your worldview of this, is really there's a larger message here. There's a larger message that what you're actually really doing is you're, compassion. If we all had that,
Hmm.
if we obviously it makes sense in the scenario of a host family and an
Sure.
exchange student, but as society, I think we have the ability. The purpose of this podcast
Yeah.
really is to bring more awareness to the great work of the people, but getting people, more importantly, what we're really trying to do. There's no hidden agenda here.
Hmm.
It is really trying to just change the perception, change the worldview, change the way you wake up. When you wake up and you look at the world, and you hear some stories. You
Right.
hear these stories about compassion, people being
Yeah.
compassionate. You hear about people, other interviews where I've talked about people with disabilities, and you
Hmm.
hear about people that are, coming homelessness, and people are curing diseases. Like, you don't hear about this
Right.
stuff. You do some in some degree. There are good news networks and things like that, but I think the thing is, as a society, though, if we can we can today, as an individual, as if we can really focus in on
Yes.
compassion, we can know that, hey, we are a part of the solution. Yes, there is the big bad out there and everything else,
Mhm.
but that we can be compassionate to each other. We can try to listen to each other. Doesn't mean like you mentioned before, like, doesn't mean you necessarily need to agree with
Right.
each other. There's a you know that's just because you disagree doesn't necessarily mean that you're right or you're wrong, or that person's right or they're wrong. But I think that's a huge piece, though, that I think if everybody did that, this world would just be a better place, right?
Absolutely, it would. Yes. I mean, I think all the time we tell our students, you know, especially if they say something, like, "Oh, my host family did X, Y, or Z," that I didn't like it. It's not how my mom does it or whatever. We talk about that's the whole point of our program, is to learn about other people because I think once you learn, even within the United States, each other, but it's important that we learn about each other's core values. And that's where I think we're missing the mark. Learning about somebody's core values really brings to light, um, I think, more similarities than differences most of the time. So,
Hmm. Yeah, like I truly believe too. It's a lot of people. It's not like people wake up today and say, "I just want to be argumentative,"
right.
right? Or I want to just disagree with everything you're going to say. Most people in their day, they just want to wake up. They want to enjoy.
Yeah.
I talked to a good friend of mine recently, last week, and he was saying, what's a perfect day? And I was like, perfect day would be a wake up, have a great cup of coffee,
Hmm.
go for a workout, de-stress a little bit, kind of get ready for the day, and take a walk in the woods or go fishing. I mean, do all these things. Well, guess what? All these things that I mentioned had nothing to do with money.
Right.
Yes, there's if you want to fish, money might help you buy a fishing rod or
Sure.
it might help
Yeah.
you buy some lures. Especially if you're like me, where your son rips up your lures in half and you have to keep buying new ones because he's 4 years old and he likes to play with roses at that
Okay.
time. So, yeah, sure. There's money definitely that's going to be required to support some of those hobbies, but I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of people, they just want to get through. They have this, they have a vision for some people, it just might be I want to be able to just get through my day and,
Right.
and not have to get into an argument.
Right.
So it's kind of combating the negative. For other people, they just want to go through and feel good, and however that is, right?
Hmm.
So when we look at interacting with each other, whether it's interacting with an exchange student, obviously that's an example, but even just interacting with ourselves, we if we understand the other person's core values and what's important to them, they are just trying to realize, hey, these are just other people. They have a certain vision for that day, or they have a certain thing that they're trying to they just want to feel good, right?
Right.
That's all we're trying to do. But sometimes we just realize that that's the inner parts, is in the right direction, but maybe the outer part is maybe something that we don't agree with, or maybe the outer part is something that makes it harder for us to relate to them because
Right.
we don't share maybe the same political views, or maybe the same philosophical, religious, or however different kinds of views. But
Right.
that's no reason for us to be different, to differ from each other, and to not work together as a society. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that, one of the things I think hosting has at least taught us, I mean, my kids are now 20, almost 21 and 26, and we've been hosting since my daughter was 5, and my son was 10, and she doesn't remember life without exchange students, right? She thought everybody hosted
Yeah.
an exchange student. And I think one of the things it has taught my kids from hosting all these different people from all over is compassion and is the ability to get along with others, the ability to stand up and say what's right and speak up for others. I think that my kids really and us too as his parents, but I think really more my kids who grew up always having someone else from somewhere else around them.
Yeah.
And I think that it really does teach compassion and love and understanding, if the person on the other side of that equation is willing to learn it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the willingness to want to learn
Sure.
it, and the willingness to be compassionate. That's half the
Yeah.
battle. But the it's amazing too, especially with, I would imagine, with exchange students. They're coming to a new
Yeah.
country, starting from, not to say not starting from zero, but it's not like they, if they have a groove back where they were from, and they have this friend group and
Yeah.
everything else. You come to this new area, this has got to be a little bit scary, but
It is.
the thing is, if you don't have people that are compassionate about you, and, you know, and supportive of you. In the olden times, thousands of years ago, you wouldn't
Right.
survive because you wouldn't have other people hunting. You wouldn't have other people protecting the tribe,
Yeah.
right? Like, so, as human beings, I love studying. I love watching Science Channel
Yeah.
and all these history channels. One
Oh,
of my
yeah.
favorites. I love all of the history where they cover a lot of the not documentaries, but the points on, like, cavemen, and or even the like tribes and all these different, and the different aspects that really kept them alive, right? Kept these
Right.
societies alive. So if you look at past societies and what kept them alive, they had to be
Yeah.
compassionate, right? They had to be compassionate. They had to be able to listen to each other,
Yeah.
because there was no other choice. If not, you weren't going to eat that
Right.
day.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah. And I have to say, our host families are amazing. And they just across the board, just the people who volunteer to host the students, um, they are in it for all the right reasons. They want to learn, they want to
Right.
teach, they want to help. And it's just amazing to me, the kids and the families, but the kids' courage. I mean, you're talking like a
Yeah.
15, 16-year-old kid leaving everything they've ever known, coming thousands of miles away from home, leaving behind everybody they've known their whole lives, and just coming to live with strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
strangers that become families. And in our world, we have a saying, our students always say, it's not a year in a life, it's a life in a year. So,
Yeah.
because it,
I
yeah,
love it. That's a great meme.
yeah,
That would be a great meme.
yeah,
Um, that's so true, though. Yeah, but their experience really represents, and the experience you create for them, your organization creates by the support network and the culture that, or the what you're instilling and how you're with these host families is something I think we can all learn from. One of the biggest take again, another big point of this podcast is to take something away. So as a listener, even if you're not, maybe you're not ready to, or maybe hosting an exchange student isn't in the cards, but maybe it is. But if it's not, there's still something to learn about that experience. And I think that the compassionate aspect, and being able to view this as a person this is literally starting. You could almost look at it as like starting from scratch.
yeah,
So if you treat others just like you would treat an exchange student, somebody starting fresh, that and just like you would I don't want to say hold a baby for the very, like you got to hold them, right? You got
yeah,
to, there's certain things that you have to do to keep them alive. And but with an exchange student, I mean, obviously their basic needs typically are, obviously they're met, but what can you do to help them thrive,
right.
right? How can you help other people in doing that? And I mean, that's one of the best gifts in the world, I would imagine, right? Is to that feeling you get when you can help others,
Yeah,
and when you can focus in on that, right? You don't have time for this negativity. You have to focus in on enriching this person's life.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean,
I think
it's got to be
I've
gratifying.
kind of laughed a few times because, my husband and I, we had 2 years off that we didn't host because our daughter had graduated high school, and we thought, oh, let's take a year off. We'll do some traveling and whatnot, and come back and host the next year. And then the pandemic hit, right? So we had 2 years off of hosting.
Right.
And we have said often that we think hosting an exchange student makes us a better family, not because we're like, putting ourselves up on a pedestal, but it brings out the best in us because we're always trying to make sure that the student that we currently have is having a a good experience, you know. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people think that means, big fancy vacations. Maybe it does for some host families, maybe not, I don't know. But for me, it
Yeah.
means, and I'll tell you, our kids all the time, you ask any of the students we've hosted, what do you remember most? And even like if we took one of them to Disney World, that's not what they say. They say, "Oh, I loved
Right.
playing cards. I loved how you taught me to use my voice. I loved, oh, I miss Dad's chicken pot pie." It's those little moments of sharing time
Mhm.
with each other, and I think we can all learn, and we can extrapolate that to all types of relationships. It's the
Yeah.
time that you give the relationship. It's the care that you
Yeah.
give, the compassion that you give. And that's what it's taught us as
Yeah.
a
It's
family.
Yeah, it's part of that whole love languages, right?
Absolutely.
The what is it, the five love
Hmm.
languages, I think it is, the book. And
Great book.
so is it acts of service? I think it's acts of service. There's but the time, time I
It
think
is one.
is another
Yep.
one, right? So yeah, I'm trying to get better at that
Yeah.
with that tier. It makes for just to try to keep everybody happy, right?
Right.
It's you have to understand what their love language is. But that's important. That if you think about it, what's really important is that it's not, hey, wow, we went on these experiences, or we went on, we took drives in these expensive cars and everything else. But you might have done those things, but it might have been more about the time that you spent with those
Right.
people. So it's puts it into perspective too, that it's less it's for some people, and myself included, I always wanted to, there's certain things in my life I always wanted to own,
Hmm.
and said, hey, if I could achieve and buy this
Right.
thing, I'm going to be super happy and feel super successful.
Hmm.
And, and then obviously you achieve those things. And over time you realize, well, that didn't gratify me as much as I
Right.
thought. And then reality is, I mean, I'm a big outdoorsman myself.
Yeah.
I love hunting. I love hunting and fishing and all those things. So when I was 30, I think it was 30, I bought a good friend of mine was selling his 5 Series BMW. So I was like, oh, cool. I always wanted to own one of those, right? Blue BMW is really in great shape. And so I bought it, and I didn't pay full price for it. Of course, I couldn't afford a full, a brand new
Right.
one. But at that point, but I realized over time, like, okay, well, I like to do these other things. I like to hunt. I like to fish. Everything else, it's a real pain in the butt to put a fishing rod in one of those things. Um, it's and you realize too, it's also really pain in the butt when they have
And they break
issues,
down.
right? They
Right.
have problems with it. They break down. They don't run a love.
Right.
So it's and then I realized, okay, and then I eventually, this past year, I ended up selling it, and I ended up buying a pickup truck, but
Hmm.
which I was much happier with. I would never thought, okay, it's a Toyota. I mean, Toyota pickup trucks are great. They make pickup trucks nicer now than
Yeah.
cars, but the but the point is that if you learn to, I think over time we start to mature, we start to learn what really
Right.
matters the most, and I think it teaches us something that now it's okay. I love putting the fishing rod in the back. I can just put it right in the
Throw
back
it
of the
in.
pickup
Yep.
truck. It's you can go wherever you want and not have to worry about borrowing somebody's truck. So it's those, again, little experiences. I think that as you mentioned, I mean, the exchange students obviously are mentioning that that's the thing that they
Yeah.
remember. But as a person listening to this, it's remember what's actually most important to
Right.
you, and why it's important to you,
Yeah.
and focus in on those
Yeah,
things,
one
right?
of the best stories I have, that I just love this story. We had hosted a boy from South Korea years ago, and actually today is his birthday. He's 27 today.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I always ask my students at the end of the year, what will you take from this experience, like that you might use in your family later in life or what have you? And his response was, until I came here, because at dinner time we always ask, "How was your day? What are 3 good things that happened today? What's one good thing or one thing you would rather have changed if you could have?" And he said that's what he was going to take back, and that before coming here, his family was just not that kind of communicative, as communicative as we were, and the culture maybe isn't as communicative in that particular way. And so he said that
Yeah.
was what he wanted to do, is when he has a family, he's going to ask his kids every night, "How was your day? What are 3 good things? What is something you would change if you could?" It's those things that matter to them. It's not the fancy vacations or, the expensive gifts. That's what's important. And I think that again can extrapolate to all types of relationships.
It does. And it's something too that we always I always find too. It's sometimes it can be forgotten,
Mhm.
right? Like it's like, okay, I'm listening to this. It sounds good. Yes, I'm gonna really pay attention on the things like time and spending quality time with people and all those things. And then all of a sudden you see, oh, I want that house or I
Mhm.
want that car or whatever, and you get excited. But is that really short term, or is
Right.
that really going to bring the gratification that is going to make your life better? And that's nine
Yeah.
times out of 10 it does. I mean, actually, probably 10 out of 10 it really doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, is it
So
going to really bring you
yeah,
joy? Long-lasting
right,
joy. So,
yeah,
probably not.
yeah.
It's
So
nice to have, but
there's that. yeah, nice to have, but and I think this interview's been great because I think it's you if you can learn through the eyes of an exchange student and what they go through and what importance of community. You've touched on that today
Yeah,
and how important that is to make sure that they have that great
right.
experience, to make sure that they're being supported. We talked about compassion. We talked about the focus in on the experiences and appreciation. I would say
Yes,
is appreciating the fact that they have intramural sports and things like that that they may not have in other areas, and establishing friendships and memories and all these things. I mean, these are all things that sometimes in our day to day lives, and as we get exposed to media, or we get exposed to bad news, or whatever, we have all of these. Things that kind of come across our lives that can throw us off
right.
trajectory. But what you mentioned today was really all the things that I think they're important, right? They're the vitamins of life.
Yeah,
I think is all the things that you don't see but you feel. I think
yes.
that's really the key,
I
right?
do think I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's definitely the things that you feel
Yeah.
that make the biggest difference. I think it was Maya
Yeah.
Angelou that said people will always remember how you made them feel, right? They might not remember what you did
Yep.
or said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And I do think that's
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 huge.
huge. Yep.
Yeah. Smile.
Yeah.
Smile. Like smiling with other people. I mean, man, that changes things,
Yeah.
right? If you're smiling on the other end, it's hard for them to. I love people that are pissed off. I'll just smile. You smile, and have a tendency not to really, it sort of simmers it down a little bit. It might
Yeah.
not alleviate whatever pain they're going through, but it's I think that's something to think about, and smile and appreciate what you have, and these, but yeah, little things like that, little experiences. I mean, smiling can make you a better salesperson.
Absolutely.
Smiling can make you
And I would say
a
that
better
like it can
husband or a
make you a
better,
better host
whatever.
parent. It can make you a better parent,
Yeah.
period. I often tell people, a smile is translated very easily in all languages. Like it's not, just smiling at somebody can literally change the trajectory of their day. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's, don't get intimidated by the amount of muscles they say that are required to smile. But
Yeah.
it's not that hard,
It
people.
takes more it
It's
takes
not
more to
that.
frown.
It
Yeah,
does. It really does. And you can change your day. Even you can smile on your own. You don't have to
that's
smile
right.
with other people around you, and you can look at the mirror and or just smile in general.
Mhm.
It's weird. There's actually I could probably look it up, but I won't spend any more time elaborating on it. But I know there's a study, and if you're listening to this, it's worth a Google. Google the psychological benefits of smiling.
Mhm.
There are literally certain chemicals that are released, that I don't know if it's endorphins or what, but that are released when you actually smile. So it's like, yeah, you're a little stressed out. You feeling a little stressed. You had a tough day, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Smile, right? Take that moment, smile. It sounds kind of crazy, but in the moment, but man, if that can change your philosophy, but and that also can make a difference in somebody else's
Yeah.
life too, is they remember how you made them feel. Well,
Right.
sometimes just smiling, some little things like that can make a huge
Yeah,
difference.
absolutely.
The art of
That's
smiling.
right. Or is it science? Now I'm not sure.
So
Maybe both.
yeah, so it's worth a Google. Yeah, it's definitely worth a
Yeah.
Google. Benefits of smiling, and compassion, and all these other in these things. So I think we can take away a lot. And Crystal, you've been great today.
Absolutely.
And sharing the experience. I think we extracted. I think we had the fruit, and I think we extracted some of the key elements of that fruit.
Yeah,
Right, we extracted the pieces out of that entire experience. And there's a lot you can learn from an experience with hosting an exchange student.
definitely.
And I would imagine, it's a great way to be able to feel all this. And so somebody on the other side says, hey, man, this sounds like a great experience. This sounds like a great way where we can go we want to bring on new experiences,
Right.
right? You want to change things up a little bit, looking to host an exchange student, create a great feeling for the rest of your life and a relationship you'll have for the rest of your life. How can somebody listening to this that is interested in becoming a host family, how can they get started with your organization?
So they can visit us on the web at borderlessfriends.org. There we have a form they can fill out to have us contact them about hosting. Our phone number is there as well, and our email contact is there, so they can reach out to us through email or phone as well. I will tell you that we are really looking for people who would maybe want to work with exchange students part-time to help, supervise them and make sure that their well-being is cared for while they're here. And we're definitely looking for host families. I think one thing I really want to reiterate is there's no perfect host family. A lot of people think you have to have teenagers to host an exchange student. That is simply untrue. Probably 65% of our families don't have teenagers. So we have empty nesters who host. We have people who've never had children host. We have young families with little tiny kids. We've even had families who've given birth while their exchange student was here with them, which is
Oh, wow.
an amazing experience because they're
That's pretty
always
cool.
going to have that, that super close relationship with that baby. And having been here during that time, that special time of that family's life, and everything in between. So there's no perfect formula for hosting. What it really takes is being willing to love someone, being willing to share your experiences with them, learn about them and their experiences, and compassion. So that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. And and out of that you'll get the best part of the transaction, so to speak, and which is gratitude and the feelings of compassion and memories that you're going to have forever, which I think is, that's priceless, right? You can't buy it off the shelf, right?
Absolutely. And I will tell
So
you, like my daughter and I, when
yeah.
she was 14, um, she and I spent a month in Europe traveling around, visiting students, visiting partners that we have. And one of the things that I just found so rewarding and amazing about the experience of having been a host mom to all of these students is that my daughter and I got to experience the other end of that, being hosted by these families,
Mm.
by their families.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
so it was just an awesome trip. It made the traveling so easy. We got to really see not just the touristy attractions you would maybe do for yourself, but we got to like live with families and really see how they lived, and it even made us, understand our students who we had hosted for a year even better because we got to meet
Yeah.
and learn about their family and of origin and their experiences there in their home countries. So there's just so many benefits to it. I could go on all day, but nobody wants to listen to me talk all day
Yeah.
long.
Hey, you know what? It's been an amazing, maybe not all day, but this has been an amazing
Yeah,
hour that we've spent together, Crystal, and I really do appreciate your time. And I think, as I always say at the end of every podcast, I mean, you have the ability, the listener has the
yeah,
ability to be a part of the solution, not the problem,
absolutely.
right? We as the people that are a part of this world have the ability to change it by changing the way we
Yes,
think, changing our compassion, changing the narrative, right? We have the ability to change that. We are the majority of the people that I think there's the majority of good in this
yeah,
world, and I think you have the ability to spread that word and to learn both from Crystal's organization here, Borderless Friends Forever, but also take taking points from today's podcast, just about how to treat other human
absolutely.
beings and how to treat. It's going to make your life a better life and make others a better life. And I think we can the movement here is really, if we can collectively do
Right,
this, then we can make the world a better place. But it starts with you. It starts with an individual. So, so but the best way to spread that word, though, is of course to take this podcast, share it wherever you possibly can. Subscribe for sure. Be sure to subscribe, and also if they're on YouTube or channel like that, be sure to smack the bell so you can get the notifications when we do a new podcast. And Crystal, thank you for coming on.
Jason, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about Borderless Friends Forever.
Excellent. So for everyone out there, appreciate you for listening, and tune in next time.